Hello everyone, welcome to my channel where we talk about this niche sort of project management that we typically find in startup environments. And you all know that I have a passion for those of you who are new to this world, who are looking to get into it, for students who are maybe interested in getting into startup but don't have a technical background and want to get into something but not sure what that is. And oftentimes that ends up being a project management type of position. So I want to share with you today, for those of you who are new to this world or starting a new position, going to start a new position soon, I want to share a tip that I have learned over the years that has been not only super helpful to me as I start those first few weeks in a new environment at startup, but I've also gotten great feedback from the teams that I've worked with when I incorporate this into my onboarding. Now, I do want to say real quick with startup onboarding, I want you all to be aware that usually onboarding at startup is going to be a very unique experience. We maybe aren't going to have all of the videos or paperwork or SOPs or manuals and all of those sorts of things available to us when we start as a project manager in a startup environment. There's usually going to be quite a bit of ambiguity. You may be the first project manager that's ever been hired, so they really don't have a good handle around what that position is going to entail. They may have a big picture for it, but the day-to-day might still need to be worked out. So consider that as you begin your new position. Just consider that that ambiguity is likely going to start on day one and you'll need to be prepared for it. Now, what I'm going to tell you is going to help you with that. It's going to actually give you some power over this. And what I like to do when I start in a new position at a startup environment is I like to get to know my team. That's the number one thing that I want to do. Even before I walk in the door on my first day, I want to get to know my team. And now this, of course, is going to be helpful to anyone starting a new position anywhere. This is a crucial piece of it. And we know that we can start to get to know our team before we even interview, right? You can start to do some research on who the players are and who does what, and you can really get some information that way. Even in the hiring process, a lot of times we're going to talk with a couple different people, several different people even. I've had some startups where I've interviewed with upwards of 8 people, and it's been a lot, but it's also a really good opportunity to start to get to know who those teams are and what each person does. So when I get to know your team, what I'm talking about is not necessarily getting to know what sports teams they like or their favorite movies and all of that, although that is very important as well, because we know building that camaraderie is really going to establish trust and build those relationships and create that really solid foundation for a strong team. So those things are important, but what I'm specifically talking about here is getting to know your team in terms of who does what, who has the knowledge about which things, whether that's a certain programming language, whether that is a certain client that we have, or maybe a piece of the product or the service that we're offering. Oftentimes going into startup, you may not have a manual on how that product or service works because it's still being built, that's still being established. So having the knowledge of maybe who to go to for what is going to be super, super helpful for you. And so the way that you're going to find that out is through observation, first of all. So as I said, before you even start that interview process, you're going to start to do some research. And then as you interview, you're going to observe and see what kinds of things people are saying, what are some keywords that certain people use. You're going to want to internalize all of that because it will help you greatly going forward into your facilitator role as a project manager. It will help you greatly as you move into orchestrating those projects and forming teams so that you can build that product effectively and efficiently. So think about that observation piece. What can you observe about people? Maybe how they work together, maybe which people work better together, maybe which people prefer to work in a more solitary type of a state versus others who prefer to be more collaborative and brainstormy and whiteboarding and all of that. You're going to want to internalize all of that. You're also going to want to ask questions. This is another great way to get to know your team. And we know that we want to ask really good, well-formed questions. We want to show that we're listening. This also shows that we care. We care about people. We care about the product. We care about getting better and moving ourselves forward collectively. And that says a lot for you as a startup project manager. If you can go into that space, maybe not knowing that product as well as you would like, maybe not even knowing really what each person does, but if you can go in there and start to ask some questions and figure that out in your mind over the next few weeks, as all of the pieces start to kind of fall in place for you, you'll be very grateful that you asked those questions. So observation and asking questions, those are two really key pieces. Now, something that I've also done when I've started in a startup environment, and this is one where I was working in a very technical space that was kind of a bit over my head at the time, and I decided that I would ask my hiring manager to just kind of provide me an overview of each of the 15 or 20 or so engineers that we were working with, if they could just provide an overview for me so I could see maybe what each person was responsible for or had been responsible for up to that point. So I could see what each person's strengths were, what each person's background was, and where they were the strongest. And that was really helpful to me. So that was a question that I asked my hiring manager to provide for me, just so I could kind of have like a document that showed me what each person could do. And that helped me going forward to formulate my plans and get to know them better. So that's another thing that you could do. Now, if you do this, if you really focus on getting to know your team, it's going to do three things for you. It's going to boost your confidence way up, right? Because you're going to find something that you can do walking in that door on day one that is going to start to move you forward. So you're going to feel more confident about where you're at, what you're doing. You may not know everything. You won't know everything. You'll never know everything. But to be able to walk in there and say, all right, I got a game plan. And what I really need to do is get to know my team. And that's going to be the most helpful thing that I can do going forward. That's going to boost your confidence. Second, it's going to add value to you in the eyes of others. So as I said previously, I have gotten great feedback when I have really focused on getting to know my team in those first few weeks on the job. I've gotten great feedback from people who can see that I really care and can see that I want to learn, that I'm humble. I don't know everything. I'm willing to ask questions. I want to ask questions. I want to know. And that is going to add a lot of value to you as a project manager. And as you move forward into more of a facilitator role in that organization, people are going to respect you. And that's huge. And then the third thing is it's going to, as I said, it's going to strengthen your ability to manage those projects. So as you start to get involved more in orchestrating those projects, putting together all the pieces, forming those teams, figuring out who needs to work on what and when, that knowledge is going to be like second nature to you because you spent so much time up front really gathering that and putting it in your head, learning who your people are, who knows the things, and being able to piece that together. So your projects are going to be more efficient, they're going to be more effective, you're going to be able to manage them very well. So I want you to consider that as you start your new positions, getting to know your team. And if you're already working somewhere, this is obviously something that you can do starting now too. If you've been around for a while and you realize you haven't put in the time getting to know your team, start doing it today. And I promise it will add a lot of value, confidence, and strengthen your project management skills. I hope this has helped you out, and I'll see you next time.